Bismillah, alhamdulillah. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Welcome to all listeners and viewers worldwide and locally as well. Tonight we'll take some of the questions, if there are any, bidnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if not, then we'll take our normal dars and the Jami' of Imam at-Tirmidhi, rahimahullah ta'ala.
F. Ali, initials F. Ali, from London, UK. Can one get married to a chaste, disbelieving woman, given that I can't find a practicing woman that's willing to marry a young man?
Question comes from the United Kingdom. Can I get married to a chaste, disbelieving woman because I cannot find a believing woman that's righteous, practicing, that will marry a young man? To keep things simple, I don't know if we have the timer tonight. We should have the timer, but to keep things simple, the permissibility of a Muslim man marrying a Jewish or Christian woman is permissible with conditions. With conditions. One of those conditions is that which was mentioned, that she be chaste, she not be a fornicatress. And if she had made zina, she made repentance, and she's no longer doing that. Tayyib. Another condition that's mentioned by the ulama of Islam regarding the permissibility of a Muslim man marrying a Jewish or Christian woman is that he has to be, or he must have, full dominance and control of any children to come. Any children to come. It cannot be a situation in which it's my child and it's your child. We'll raise the child together mutually. Maybe the child can grow and be a Christian. Maybe the child can be a Muslim. Let the child decide. One day the child will go to the synagogue. One day the child will go to the mosque. One day there'll be a bar mitzvah. One day there'll be Eid, so on and so forth. That cannot be. That's haram. And that's invalid. It has to be understood that this is my child, just like it's your child, but the child will be raised as a Muslim, taught as a Muslim, culturally cultivated as a Muslim. If you agree to this and you don't mind being my wife, I'll treat you kindly, I'll provide for you, I'll love you. I'm a Muslim, you're a Christian, you have your values, but this household, the child, things are as I say. If a woman agrees to that and she's fine with that, alhamdulillah. Tayyib, la bas. But in most cases in 2018, what woman is going to agree to this? Unless you find a woman that's extremely old-fashioned, that has true cultural values of the old, not the modern day people today. You're not going to find this. What do you mean? It's my child. I want to take the child, the birthday party. The child goes here, the child does that. So the people of knowledge, they mention these conditions. And they say if these conditions are not fulfilled, then you cannot marry a Jewish or a Christian woman. Everybody clear on this? Now, it's hard enough and it's difficult enough marrying a Muslim woman and properly raising the child. You differ with the woman. Woman differs, okay? With regards to how the child is going to be raised. You want the child to go to an Islamic school. The woman says, no, go to public school. You want the child to go to a public school, she says, has to go to an Islamic school. No matter how messed up the Islamic school may be, or what's lacking, etc., etc. So the Muslims themselves, unfortunately, have too many differences, and they can't agree on the color of water. They can't agree on the color of grass. In one household, in one city, in one borough, they can't agree on basic things, let alone a Muslim and a what? Non-Muslim. So it's very, very dangerous having a child in which the other half isn't Muslim. Extremely dangerous. And it's very plausible or possible for that child to be raised confused, extremely confused. Let alone a person say, I want to be a Muslim. I want to follow my mother's religion. I'm a Jew. I'm a Christian. Waliyadu billah. So that's something that's very dangerous and you have to be mindful of. As far as not having the ability to find a practicing Muslim woman, she won't marry a young man, then that's something that I haven't seen. That's something that I can't necessarily agree with. You may not have women in your locale. You may not have women how you want them to be, height and weight, this and that, so on and so forth, your specifications. You may have a problem. They don't have a problem with a young husband, but a young husband without a job. That's the problem. They may not have a problem with a young husband that has your issues. So, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, go back to our lecture on marriage in light of Kitab and Sunnah with regards to how to find the right spouse, or in reality, how to make the right spouse find you. Please go back to that, inshallah ta'ala. I wouldn't advise you to marry a Jewish or a Christian woman unless it's an extreme condition in which a person fears of falling into zina. And Allah knows best. Question says, its initials MZU, Birmingham, UK. Can we pray behind the Hanafi imam for witr? As long as he isn't doing something which is against the ijma' of the Muslims, something which is in clear contradiction to the authentic sunnah, there's nothing wrong with praying behind someone who's Hanafi, Shafi'i, Maliki, Hanbali, Zahiri, etc. etc. What's important is we have to understand something that's very important, very dangerous. We live in a time in which there are people who say that this person is clearly not on the sunnah. This person is clearly upon bid'ah. This person is clearly upon haram. But in actuality, when you sit down and you use a microscope, the microscope of the deen, it's not so clear. And if it was that dead smack in the face clear, this person of religion and piety wouldn't be practicing it. And they wouldn't be doing it. If it was that clear. There's a difference between as-sarih wal-zahir. As-sarih, that's the clear, direct. The dalil and the dilala. It's authentic and it's right to the point. And then there's that which is zahir. The dalil is authentic, but it's not right to the point, but it's possible. It's possible. It leads to the direction that this is the correct view, but it's not sarih. So how can you take the zahir and say that it's sarih? This happens all of the time. It's clearly haram. What's clearly haram about it? And then when you sit down and you start numbering the points, it's not haram at all. As someone may say. Someone may say. You do the interview with a woman. It's clearly haram. What's clearly haram about doing an interview with a woman? It could be haram, but what's clearly haram? Is he alone with her? Is he touching her? Is he lusting off of her? Is he staring at her? Those are the things that will make the interview with a woman to be what? Clear. No, I never said haram. I did not say that. I said what? Clearly haram. That's the whole point. We still didn't get. Clearly haram. It could be haram, this scholar doing an interview with a woman. Maybe. But it isn't what? Clearly haram. Now if it was him or her doing an interview, no one else was watching. It wasn't public. There was no one in the studio. They're sitting alone in a room. Then that's what? Clearly haram. Because of the text of the sunnah about secluding yourself with a woman and you're not a mahram for her. That's clearly haram. Me and her were traveling together on an airplane. Or not even an airplane, because that's the issue today with regards to the means of travel. Let's say we're walking. We're going to walk somewhere far, from one city to another, one state to another. At nighttime, on horses, on a camel. Me and her alone. That's clearly what? Haram, because of the authentic sunnah. Do not travel with a woman unless you're a mahram for that woman. I'm touching her. She's not my mahram. I'm not her mahram. That's clearly what? Haram. We're doing an interview and I'm staring at her and I'm lusting off of her. I'm looking at her eyes and her neck and her face and her breast and so on and so forth. That's what?
Haram.
No. See how we don't get it? That's clearly what? Clearly haram. Because of the nusus, the text. Somebody may say, you can't do an interview with a woman because it's unbefitting. Person of sunnah, person of knowledge. The people are going to start doing it. They're going to take it. You know, you looked up at her. She smiled at you. She was staring at you. مثلا كذا وكذا. ممكن. ماشي. But that's all going to be what? That's going to be all what? Ijtihad. The text is what? Traveling, secluding, touching, lusting, etc. That's mansus alayh. And anything which has text, mansus alayh, it can be what? Clearly haram. Rather, all the different classes that we have done, how many times have we seen when there's dalil and it still isn't what? Clearly haram or clearly obligatory. And the Sahaba, the companions themselves, they what? They did what? They differed. And we're reading the hadith in Bukhari, Muslim, Lu'lu Marjan, the Prophet. And Ibn Abbas said no. Salat al-Asr, Salat al-Wusta, so on and so forth. Everybody understand this? So the people have to fear Allah and they have to stop this nonsense of taking ijtihad and forcing people into ijma'. They have to stop this. If that's the view that you take and that you adopt, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. This is the view. It's difference of opinion, and I feel this is correct. This is the correct way. طيب, لا بأس. But it's ijtihad, and that it cannot become an issue of what? Ijma', which is clear dalil, الَّذِي يُضَلَّلُ فِيهِ الْمُخَالِفِ, and which the one who says otherwise is now said to be what? Upon misguidance. Everybody doing this or not? And even if the person is upon misguidance in one issue, that does not necessitate that he's outside of the sunnah. It does not necessitate that a person is what? Dal, mudil, because of a mistake, which is actually proven to be a mistake. Let alone, Abdul Qawi, if what he said or did isn't a what? Mistake. And the criticizer is actually what? Mistake. He's wrong, he's mistaken. Or, at worst, it's what? A and B. The dalil is here and the dalil is what? And it could be a different way. This is the environment in which we live. We're not talking about people that don't practice the religion. We're not talking about people of bid'ah. We're talking about people who attribute themselves to ilm. They have this attitude and this mindset. It's very dangerous. It's very dangerous. And it's caused a great deal of harm. And it has split and separated many of people. And has hindered the sunnah from reaching its full gallop. Tied up the thoroughbred horse. And Allah knows best.
Initials MM from NYC, Manhattan. Assalamu alaikum. Reading Quran, English, if one doesn't know how to read Arabic during Ramadan. Is it the question? If one doesn't know how to read Arabic during Ramadan?
What's the question, Nafis?
Reading Quran in English, if one doesn't know how to read Arabic during Ramadan.
Right, reading the Quran in English, if one doesn't know how to read Arabic in Ramadan. What's important is the virtue of reading the Quran that's mentioned in the Quran and the Sunnah. It's talking about reading the Quran, the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Arabic. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ اللَّهُ الصَّمَدُ. That's Allah's speech. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's speech being interpreted is one thing. Allah's speech being translated is a second thing. Some of the ulama say that you can't translate the Quran. They said the Quran cannot be translated. It's haram to be translated. We're not here to discuss that ruling right now. What's important is there's a blessing and there's a barakah, and you reading anything which is beneficial. Anything which is beneficial to your spirit and your soul. Whether it is a book, whether it comes to Allah, whether it's a translation, the interpretation, it's a reward. Is it the same reward as reading directly from the Mus'haf Sharif? Reading the surah in its original language, so on and so forth? That's one thing. But for you to sit down and read the translation or to read the interpretation of the Quran and what it means and so on and so forth, that's a beautiful thing, and there's a great deal of reward in that. So don't ever stop doing that. Don't stop what? Doing that. And even if you know Arabic, doesn't mean that you don't read English. As we said many times, it's not haram to read English. I enjoy reading English myself. Islamic books, and many Islamic books I have, in which are what? I read in English. And I benefit and I learn from them in English. Everybody clear on this or not? So what's important is that you perform good in this month. If you know Arabic, and alhamdulillah. If you can read Arabic without knowing it, then alhamdulillah. And if you can't, and you want the reward, then you need to learn how to read the Quran in its original language. And it's not that hard, it's not that difficult. There are classes, there are books, there are apps, there are people. All it takes is a little bit of sacrifice, a little bit of hard work, a little bit of effort, a little bit of money, and bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, in 3 months, 6 months, a year, you'll be able to read the Quran, bi'idhnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah knows best.
Initials AA from London. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Akhi, how do we deal with people who raise the status of scholarly opinions, madhab, etc., over the sunnah? Example, raising the hands before and after ruku'.
Question comes from the UK with regards to raising scholarly opinions over the sunnah, such as raising the hands in the salah, etc. It's a very long issue, very long discussion. The only thing that I'll say right now, right here, is abolishing this practice through your own practice. You abolish it. When people talk about racism, racism is evil, racism is everywhere, people are racist, they're prejudiced, they're bigots, so on and so on and so forth. But if you sat down and talked to this person or traveled with this person, had a meal with this person, discussed marriage with this person, you would find that they themselves have a great deal of racism with them. They themselves have a great deal of prejudice with them. They themselves are suffering from many ills. So if you want racism to be taken out of the modern world today, then you should be the first person to be against it. In your speech and in your action. All right, by clearness, in your speech and in your action. Look at the Muslims today. The Muslims complain about Donald Trump, President Trump. He's racist against Muslims. He's prejudiced against Arabs. He bans people from traveling. He's this and he's that and he's this and he's that. That's what many people say today. And it may be true. But you go into the masjid, how much racism is in the masjid? How much prejudice is in the masjid? Arab, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, this, that, Guyanese, so on. How much racism do we live in? And then the people that complain about the president being racist and prejudiced. But you yourself are racist. You yourself are prejudiced. You yourself have these values, whether it's business, marriage, prayer, salah. A child is running around the masjid, they'll stop the child because of a certain race. Sit down, it's a masjid. But let the child be from another race or another skin complexion and let the child run crazy. Am I exaggerating? This is times in which we live. So if you want people not to take the statements of scholars and put them above the dalil, then you should be the first person not to do that. And most people who talk like this, they themselves do it even worse. Such as Hanafi al-Hadith. Abu Hanifa, his views, his opinions, all bid'ah. Don't blind follow Abu Hanifa. Don't be a bigot to Abu Hanifa. Don't follow Abu Hanifa. But a modern day scholar who's living today, his statement is above Quran and Sunnah. His statement is above common sense. His statement is above that which you know about a brother for 20 years. I've been with Abdul Qawi, traveled with him, ate with him, argued with him, fought with him. Then a scholar says he's misguided. And I say, well, I guess he's misguided. And you know deep down in your heart that he's not misguided. All of the times that I've traveled with Abdul Qawi, I've never heard him say anything against Quran or Sunnah, ever. This is where he studied, this is where he came from, this is how he was raised. These are his books, his classes are all transparent. And I'm going to take the statement of Sheikh Fulan because he's a scholar, he knows better, he has knowledge and I don't. And then you have the nerve to say, the Hanafis are blind followers. The Hanafis are fanatics. The Hanafis worship Abu Hanifa. The Hanafis take Abu Hanifa's statement. No. Abu Hanifa died over 1,000 years ago. He's dead. There's nothing more that he can say. Abu Hanifa cannot change. But the sheikh that you blindly follow today fanatically, one day this person is this, the next day he's that, the third day this one, he praises this one, he takes this one back. One day this person's a mountain, the next day he's a jahil, he's ignorant. He has not an ounce of dalil with him. Who's the blind follower? Who's the fanatic? Who takes the scholarly opinion above Quran and Sunnah and above common sense? You, and not the Hanafi. So if you wanted to stop existing, let you be the first person to fight it. Everybody clear on this? The dalil that's clear from Kitab and Sunnah, the dalil that's clear what the Sahaba said and did and so on and so forth, then that's what you respect. And don't take the scholarly opinion and put it what? On a pedestal. And fanatically force people into taking it, into adopting it. As we've said before, if you are pleased with being a muqallid, a blind follower, that's fine. Don't force it upon the next individual. If you trust this person, this student or this sheikh, that's tayyib. Alhamdulillah, you trust them. No problem. But do not force it upon the next person. If you are not willing to think and use your mind that Allah blessed you with critically, that's fine. But don't force it upon what? The next person that says, I actually want to think about it. I actually want to use what Allah gave me. I know the brother personally. I don't care what anyone says about him. I know him personally. Well, how could? Oh, you're just saying that because he's your friend. You're just saying that because that's your man. You're just saying that. Yes. Why is he my friend? Because of what? Of what? Quran or Sunnah. That's the only reason why we're what? Friends. That's the only reason. How do I know you, Abu Saeed? In the military, the Marines, the Navy. I only met you through what? Islam. And if it wasn't, we didn't have this shared interest, we wouldn't have what? Even Islam. If we weren't both trying to practice the correct understanding of Islam, what are the chances of me being in the masjid in which you're at? If I was on something crazy and you were on something crazy, what's the chances of us meeting up and being friends for 10 years? Huh? The fact that we're in the same masjid, I'm giving a class, you're listening to the class, we benefit, we travel, we eat, we this and that. That has to prove what? It has to prove something. So therefore, if someone comes along and says, Uncle Faz is upon bid'ah, I'm going to say no. You can't tell me anything about Uncle Faz. And I am saying this because he's my friend. Yes. But why is he my friend? Because of the loyalty, the knowledge, the stuff that he's built over the years. Everybody understand this? Allah wants us to use our minds. And Allah never wants us to be stupid and foolish. And the main problem that the mushrikeen had is that they refused to use their minds. They refused to think critically. Allah asked them the question, you don't want girls, but you say Allah has girl children. And you acknowledge the fact that Allah is perfect. And Allah is the most powerful of all of the deities. Allah is the greatest and the biggest. As Allah clearly says, when you travel by sea, you call upon Allah alone. And when you reach safety, you do what? You make shirk again. Because when they're at sea and the ship is about to crash, they know that Lat and Uzza and Manat can't do what? Can't help them. Only Allah, Tawheed. But then when you reach land, you do what? You go back to Lat and Uzza. So Allah Azza wa Jal, He wanted the mushrikeen to think critically. You say Allah has daughters, but you don't want daughters. You say Allah has a second or a third, and so read the Quran. From beginning to the end, it's based off of what? Critical thinking. Worship your Lord who created you and those who came before you. Alladhi ja'ala, He who made the earth, He who made the skies, He who did this, He who that. Use your what? Use your brain, common sense. How can Allah have a second or a third? How can Allah have a partner? And so on and so forth. So critical thinking is the foundation. Huh? And if you're not critically thinking, then you're going to fall prey. You're going to fall prey. You're going to fall victim. So that's my advice. With regards to taking scholarly opinions and putting them above the dalil, you should be proactive yourself. You implement it yourself. You propagate it yourself. And within ta'ala, one person with a second, with a third, with a fourth, with a fifth, with 10, 20, 100, then there's a change in the world. There's a change. And Allah knows best.
Ibrahim Ali from Sheffield, UK. Should I focus memorizing Quran or multitask?
Focusing on memorizing the Quran or multitasking is based off of what type of person you are. If you're a multitasker, then do that. If you can only do one thing at a time proficiently, then focus on one thing at a time. And it also depends on what level of study you're in and how old you are and what are your plans. If a person goes overseas and a person says, I don't plan on being a da'i, I don't want to be a student of knowledge and give classes, I just want to save myself and my family from the fire. Tell you. Then just focus on one thing. Focus on Quran. I want to memorize the Quran. I want to have the honor of memorizing the Quran. That's fine. But if a person has the responsibility of being an imam, of teaching people, of guiding people, then the Quran is not enough. Meaning as a science. That's what we mean by that statement. The Quran is enough for everything. We're talking about as a science. You have to learn fiqh, you have to learn this, you have to learn that. Because you have a broad line of problems that you have to deal with. So you have to memorize maybe just 10 juz. That's all I have the time for. And now I memorize the other 20 when I get back to my country. I have to lock down the fiqh of inheritance. I have to lock down the laws of this. I have to learn the basics of tafsir. I have to learn this. I have to learn how to teach books and aqeedah. I have to do all of these things. Everybody understand this? So it depends on you as a person. It depends on your responsibility, and it depends on your age. If a person is old, he has to think realistically. If a person is young, inshallah, years ahead of him, he has to think realistically. There is no one set rule. There is no one set rule. And Allah knows best.
This is PA from Sweden, Örebro. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. What is your advice for a brother that really likes his sister and wants to get married but has been rejected from her? But having been rejected from her, should he keep trying or what?
Question coming from Sweden. If you really like a sister and you've been rejected several times, what should you do? It depends on how you were rejected and why you were rejected. Sister may reject you and she's playing hard to get. You got to keep trying. It's a game that many people play. This is well known. Sister may reject you, supposedly, but in actuality, she didn't reject you. But your middleman, your in-between was what? He was bad. Yeah, she's not interested. She's not interested in you. And he may like the sister himself. Or she may not have just jumped for joy when he mentioned it to her. It doesn't mean that she actually what? Rejected you. So you have to make sure that all of your bearings are good and clear. Before you start driving a car or flying the plane, you do what? You do a systems check. I know that a sister likes men that are, or brothers that are handsome, dapper, good appearance. I dress sloppily. I dress like a bum. I'm not fly. So you need to change your what? Change your gear. Change your attire. The sister doesn't have a problem with you, but she doesn't like brothers that what? Dress like that. So you got to do a systems check. The sister that you sent to the sister or the father or someone that you asked, you're in between, is bad. He's unreliable. You need to have to do a systems check. And if you do everything that you possibly can, and the sister says, no, I'm not interested in you, call it Allah, khalas. There are too many fish in the sea that remain in one pond. Faz? Too many. There are women that Allah has created, for you to be stuck just on one. If she doesn't like you, then that's your fate. Khalas, that's your qadr. Accept it. And oftentimes, if you walk away from the situation and you're pleased with Allah's qadr, oftentimes the situation will come to you. And you'll know that it was destined for you. And sometimes certain people don't like to be pressured. Certain women don't like to be pressured. They may feel too shy. They may feel too embarrassed. A father may not be comfortable with you directly asking him for the hand of his daughter in marriage. He may like you, but his culture doesn't support that. You have to go to an uncle, an older brother, and he speaks on your behalf. Well, how can that? So you have to know how to do things. You have to know how to operate things. And at the end of the day, no matter how much wisdom is applied and strategy is applied, if the sister is not interested in you, then submit. She's not interested in you. Khalas, Allah will give you better and Allah will give her better. It's just that simple. And Allah knows best.
Abdul Karim from Morocco, Meknes. What are your views on traveling to Egypt to study Arabic and Islamic studies?
Question comes from Meknes, Morocco. What are your views on traveling to Egypt to study the Arabic language, study Quran, to study Islamic sciences? Barakallahu fiqh, Akhil Kareem. May Allah bless you in the lands of North Africa. I would advise you to go anywhere and study as long as it is a suitable place and a suitable location. Wa alaikum assalam. As long as the people that are teaching you have the proper qualifications and the proper characteristics of a teacher. Egypt, Saudi, wherever you go, Allah's earth is most spacious. Wherever you find that which is suitable, then that's where you should go. Whether it's Egypt or whether it's places other than Egypt. It's just that simple. Do I know many people have traveled to Egypt that have benefited tremendously and learned? Yes, I do. But it may not be good for you. Whether it's a political reason or a social reason or economic reason, what's important is that if you find a good place, then the narration says, "Inna al-hikmata dalatul mu'min." They say wisdom is the lost possession of the believer. Wisdom is the lost camel of the believer. Wherever you find it, you take it. Wisdom. Wisdom has no place. Knowledge has no color, has no race. It has no time zone. There are no borders and boundaries of beneficial knowledge. Wherever you find it, you go and you take it. That's my advice. Bidnillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah knows best.
This is LH from New York. If you have a cast on your arm, but the water can't see through your cast, do you have to leave that part alone? Like you said, do if you had a wet band-aid on?
Question come from New York City with regards to if you have a cast on your arm and you make wudu. Do you have to wipe over it or do you have to leave it alone? You don't have to do anything with regards to leaving it on. It's optional. Some ulama say you wipe over it. Some ulama, they say you make tayammum afterwards. But there's a huge difference in a band-aid and a cast. A cast or a splint is going to be on you for some time. The band-aid is going to be temporary. A couple days at best, at worst, a cut. It's going to dry up, it's going to close up, etc. So therefore, a cast or a split is one thing, and a Band-Aid is another. It's a big part of your body. A Band-Aid, small tip of your finger. You wiping over it of a cast is one thing. You wiping over what? A bandage is different. Everybody learn this or not? So there's a difference. So at the end of the day, if you have a cast or a splint, then inshallah ta'ala, there's nothing wrong with wiping over it. There's nothing wrong with wiping over it. And Allah knows best.
Initials RC from Newcastle, UK. What is the ruling on a wedding ring?
Question says, coming from Newcastle, UK, the ruling on a wedding ring. My humble opinion, it depends on the wedding ring. If it's a man buying a ring for a woman, or if it's a woman getting a ring for a man, or a man getting it for himself, there's a difference. Men are not allowed to wear solid gold. Men are not allowed to wear certain things. Women can wear solid gold. Everybody clear on this? A band versus just a nice ring. A woman wants a ring. Women like rings. They like jewelry. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you have a specific type of band, a specific finger, a specific way in which you wear it, that's based off of shirk and kufr, that's based off of superstition, love, that's based off of Christian values, then that's a different story. That's a what? That's a different story. And even with that being said, I'm not saying that a wedding band or the specific ring for a woman is haram. And that's because there are many things that we do on a daily basis that come from these superstitious practices. Many things. Foods that we eat, things that we say, places that we go, directions on a map. It's based off of kufr and shirk. The days of the week, based off of polytheism. Monday is the day of the moon, in which they worship the moon. Friday is the day of Friz, the Nordic god, in which they worship this god named Friz. Yet and still you say, I'm coming on what? Friday. And you don't abolish the term. Well, how can that? So once you apply certain things, it's haram to do this. You can't have this type of ring. You can't. That's fine. But you have to apply it to many, many other practices on a daily basis that come from polytheism. Whether it's the eggs that you eat in the morning or the dessert that you have after your meal. Read about eggs and read about dessert. You'll be shocked what you find, where it came from and why people stick to it. It's not just because of protein. People eat eggs in the morning for reasons of shirk and kufr. But obviously the Muslim is not eating an egg for what? For that reason. وهكذا. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. Wa sallallahu sallam wa barak ala abdihi wa rasulihi nabiyina Muhammad.